Good afternoon, everyone. We have a great day today, and we're very fortunate. The weather is on our side. So if the weather is on our side, I know nothing else could be that bad for us today. So I want to welcome you all. And I want to welcome you all to our 40th annual Black History Month program. This year, we are going to have a little bit of a different program. This year, our focus is going to be on healthcare. And so we're very fortunate enough today to have a special guest with us. And many of you may recognize him. I'm going to just have him stand and just be acknowledged. Mr. Errol Lewis, New York One News, please. And of course, I want everyone to recognize, and it's without saying, our leader here at Downstate, our president, Wayne J. Riley. So I want to greet you all, and I see in the audience a few people I'd just like to take a moment to recognize. Dr. Jack DeHovitz, please. He's the head of our STAR program here at Downstate. Dr. Marion Vincent, who is very key, who is the executive director of our district program. I thought I saw Dr. Moro Salafu, who is the chief of medicine here. Please. Of course, Dr. Michael Lucchese as well, our chief of emergency medicine. And I also, people don't like to be recognized, but Pat Winston, she's in the front row here, our chief administration officer. And there are some other people that are here, and I'll acknowledge them as the program goes on. So I want to welcome you all again, and I hope that this program will be highly informative and enlightening about healthcare in Brooklyn, and particularly about healthcare as it affects the communities in Brooklyn and beyond. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Anika Daniel Osase to the stage to conduct an annual, ancient ceremony, which is called a libation ceremony. And a libation ceremony really is the acknowledgement of our ancestors, as well as acknowledgement of those who have paved the way for us. And many of us, no matter what our cultures, have had many people who have paved the way. So this is very relevant, and so I invite Dr. Anika Daniels Osage to the stage.
Thank you. Hotep, everyone. Hetepu. I greet you in the ancient African term meaning peace and blessings. Today we are going to do a libation because it is customary in African traditions that anything we do of importance, you must acknowledge the divine force and you must acknowledge your ancestors who got you here and helped you pave the way for the success that we now benefit from today. So I will be making a series of statements, and after each statement, I welcome you to join me in saying the word ashe, meaning it is so. So we begin by saying, we pour libation for the one divine force, Mother, Father, Creator of all things, all known by many names. Ashe. We pour libation for the continent of Africa, Mother, Father, Creator, Mother, land, and cradle of all civilization. Ashe. We pour libation for the illustrious ancient ancestors who gave medicine, mathematics, and science to the world. I name some being Imhotep, father of medicine, Ashe. Lady Peseshet, first woman chief of surgery, Ashe. Hesi Ra, first recorded dentist, Ashe. We pour libation for those who lived, died, and struggled, fought through the Middle Passage so that we can be here today, Ashe. We pour libation for those freedom fighters who fought, struggled, and died so we could be here and celebrate our own freedoms. Nat Turner, Queen Anne Nzinga. We pour libation for those medical and health professionals, scientists, inventors, and contributors who paved the way for modern medicine. Dr. Charles Drew, Dr. Daniel Hell Williams, Dr. Rebecca Ann Crumpler, nurses known as Harriet Tubman, nurses such as Sojourner Truth, and all those who helped identify cures, even unknowingly, such as Miss Henrietta Lacks. We pour libation for our esteemed elders upon whose shoulders we stand. We pour libation for those loved ones and family members who we have lost. And finally, we pour libation for our youth and those who are yet to be born, those who will follow us in our traditions, and those who will pave the way for the future of our people. Ashe, Ashe, Asheo. Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to welcome Ms. Violet Price, who will bring us greetings and will also bless us with the Black National Anthem.
Please stand. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling seas. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Join in. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Thank you.
Can we give her one more round of applause? It was very beautiful. We are now going to have the invocation, but I just wanted to let you all know that Imam Abdul Rashid is not going to be able to be with us here today. He is visiting his father in Pakistan, but he does send his blessings for this ceremony today. So peace be unto him, and I know that he wishes us all the best today. One of the things before Reverend Walker comes up that I would ask everyone to do is please turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate. Thank you. One special acknowledgement I'd like to have to do right now is to have Dr. Gerald Dees, please. Dr. Gerald Dees, please stand and be acknowledged for all your years here. Dr. Gerald Dees is a symbol of progress here at Downstate and has dedicated many, many years of service here, and we do acknowledge him on this Black History Month ceremony. So, without further ado, I welcome to the program and to the podium Reverend Sharon Cartner Walker.
It's time for exercise. Please stand with me as we invite the presence of the divine, the great physician, the Holy One, the God of many names, the magnificent benefactor and Lord, to be with us in conversation. Let us pray. Holy and sacred one, God, magnificent benefactor and great physician, we gather together now collectively in this fashion and on live stream, inviting your truth, your presence, and your power to enter now and to dwell among us as we engage in conversation concerning health care, what is happening, and what is in store for this great borough of Brooklyn. Oh God, move mightily among us so that we can hear the plans towards us, as Brooklyn has struggled, especially in our vulnerable areas, for generations to overcome cycles of neglect, poverty, underinvestment, and access to quality health and improved preventive care. Speak, Lord, to us through your servant leaders, your strategic visionaries, with regard to the bold and necessary transformations and positive reshaping that has already begun in Brooklyn and that will affect our future and the future of healthcare. Allow political anchor Errol Lewis and President Wayne J. Riley to unpack for us the committed focus towards Brooklyn that upholds improved health outcomes in quality, in safety, and in innovative service delivery to this community, its residents, and far-reaching. Help them to allow us to see the creativity in us, all around us, and help them to allow us to address social determinants of health. Empower, O God, and embolden us through discussion to serve well, to strengthen our relationships, to challenge, and to be challenged to implement solutions and strategies and new care delivery models suitable for health complexities that we face. Infuse every person in this room to rally through this discussion to a higher vision, to moral mandates, and to determinations that will indeed be the significant engine of care. SUNY Downstate Medical Center in Brooklyn is indeed a force to be reckoned with. So bless us as we expand education, as we expand research, as we expand as the stellar institution in Brooklyn, ensuring excellent medical outcomes for the immigrant, for the insured, for the 29 million uninsured, and the underinsured, especially, O God, because we believe that comprehensive and quality health care is a right for all and not a privilege. Sacred One, thou art welcome. Amen.
Our Father in heaven, it is you who created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. All things, great and small, are your handwork and proclaim the glory of your holy name. You fashioned man in your image and gave him his mate, and made their children abundant like the stars of the sky. You made all nations of the world the descendants of one man and woman to show that all mankind are truly brothers. You gave them the 7 righteous commandments: to believe in you, not to blaspheme, not to kill, not to steal, not to commit adultery, not to be cruel to animals, and to set up courts of justice in every community. And you gave those laws to the sons of Noah so they could make the world a dwelling place for you. Almighty God, bless this gathering and its participants. Plant within our hearts the spirit of brotherhood and unity, that together we shall build a future for our community and our nation, rooted in respect, peace, and freedom. Master of universe, hasten the era of redemption when all mankind will live harmoniously together, and we shall merit to thrive in a world of peace and prosperity with the coming of the righteous Mashiach. May this may take place speedily in our days. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Holtzman. Thank you, Reverend Walker. At this time, I have the opportunity to bring to the stage our president, Wayne J. Riley. But before I do that, I just wanted to say that there's really not a big difference between President Riley and myself. Really isn't. But I'll have to backtrack on that, except he holds an MD, and he holds a MPH, and he holds an MBA, and MACP. Okay, let's give him that. Okay? But there's really not a big difference. Well, let me think about that. Okay, he's a little taller than I am. Okay, just a little bit. But aside from that, we're the same person. Okay, but it gives me great opportunity. I would like to bring to the stage our distinguished president, Dr. Wayne J. Riley.
Thank you, Mike. You know, I jokingly refer to him as Downstate Steve Harvey. He does it so well. But good afternoon. Thanks for coming to close out the celebration nationwide of African American History Week. And I couldn't think of a better way to do it but to delve into tough issues because this month is meant to honor our ancestors, as Anika so poignantly reminds us in the libation ceremony, but also calls us to get involved in tough issues with others. And obviously healthcare is something we care deeply about here in Brooklyn, and the state of the country, indeed the state of the world. And who better to do that than our outstanding guest speaker and conversationalist, and that's Mr. Errol Lewis, who is really the preeminent political journalist in New York City, in this region, and in fact the country. And I was telling him, we had a little chance to chat before coming over here, I'm up at 5:30 every morning, so I'm usually getting dressed, and I turn up CNN real loud so I can hear it while I'm shaving, and there he is. There's Errol Lewis right there on CNN talking about what's going on in Washington and in Congress and so forth. So he has always impressed me as someone so erudite and so thoughtful and analytical, and does it in a way that really makes you think about current public affairs. So I'm so honored that he would take time from his busy day. Remember, he's on New York One, he's on CNN, and he's writing and speaking. So to me, it's really a high honor, Errol, for you to be with us. So on behalf of all of us here at Downstate, thank you for coming.
Greetings again. I am so honored and humbled to be able to introduce our special guest speaker for today. Mr. Errol Lewis is the host of New York One's Inside City Hall, the preeminent political news show in New York City. Previously, he served as a columnist and editorial board member at the New York Daily News and was a talk show host of WWRL Radio. He has won numerous journalism prizes and has taught at Pratt Institute, Hunter College, Long Island University, and New York University. He has a bachelor's degree from Harvard, a master's degree from Yale, and a JD from Brooklyn Law School. Yes, a fellow Ivy Leaguer. On a personal note, I had the honor of working with Errol as a summer intern when he and Mr. Mark Winston Griffith ran the Central Brooklyn Partnership and the Central Brooklyn Credit Union right here in Brooklyn. Their organization taught financial literacy to youth and encouraged cooperative economics for the people of Brooklyn. So I had the opportunity to see firsthand the amazing contributions that Errol made to the Brooklyn community. So at this time, I'd like you to please join me in welcoming Mr. Errol Lewis to the stage.
Really cool.
So if we could have Mr. Lewis say a few words before we go into our discussion today.
Yes, I would like to. Thank you very much, Anika. And it's a joy and a privilege, and I'm so glad to be here, and so glad all of you came out this afternoon. There was, when I came here in 1984, as a cub reporter, had really nothing except a pad and a pen, and a job paying $150 a week at the old City Sun newspaper, for those who remember it. Dr. Dees does. He was a resource for us. At the time, one of the early stories, in fact, was down here. I remember talking with the Committee on Interns and Residents, who I think were about to launch a job action at the time. Some things never change, right? People had complaints. But it was a special time to be here and to see things grow and develop in ways that we could never have even imagined, but that we sort of thought we were taking the right steps to build the basis for something good. And it's wonderful to come back later and see that something good, in fact, has happened, not just here, but in the community as a whole. In giving tribute to our ancestors, I live in a house in Crown Heights that my father bought with his aunt in 1956, which was well before I was born. Wow. In fact, my aunt was a nurse at Brooklyn Jewish, and she and a bunch of the other West Indian nurses formed a susu, and everybody bought houses. Everybody bought houses near the hospital so that they could walk to work. And she was the aunt, of course, who would give us savings bonds instead of toys. That's right. And as a kid, you look at this and you'd be like, what is this? And of course, sitting in that same house in 1985, completely flat broke, wondering how I was going to get my next meal, and then I found the savings bonds. And lo and behold, Auntie saved the day once again. Yes. And so I tend to tell that story, in fact, to some of my younger relatives and other relatives and say, like, look, you can do this. You can't quite necessarily know where it's going to go. I think she'd be amazed if she saw this place, her place, what her old hospital has turned into, which is, kind of yuppie apartments at this point. But to do the right thing and to try and see the right path forward, you don't have to see all the way to the horizon. If you just put one foot in front of the other, you can, in fact, make quite a lot of progress. And so I thank you all for coming here with us. I also want to say thank you for supporting New York One News. And we don't take our audience for granted. I should mention that if you have friends, relatives, or if you yourselves are in Nassau or Suffolk or Westchester, we're in all of those suburban counties now. We recently added a couple of million households to the footprint. Anybody you know who has Optimum Cablevision in Long Island, Westchester, New Jersey, we're on. It's Channel 98. They can watch the show. Dr. Riley, we met when I think you were on the job maybe 2 weeks or something like that. That's right. And that was less than a year ago. You haven't had your 1 year anniversary yet. What have you found in the last year? I mean, you figured out where the men's room is. You got that down. You got a sense of the challenges that you face. From your standpoint, where are sort of the main points of attack in central Brooklyn where you want to try to leverage things and make things better?
Well, again, Errol, welcome. We're delighted to have you. You're right. April 3rd will be my 1 year anniversary, and I'll answer the first part of your question this way, because I often get this question recently. What surprised you about Downstate? And the thing that surprises me about Downstate is what you're seeing here, our people. We have some terrific people who have dedicated their careers here, whether they take care of our facilities or run our labs or administer a program or work in an office in administrative support. I am just so proud of the people because I understand the most important thing any organization has, Errol, is the people who walk in and out of the door every day and go home at night. So that to me has been very gratifying, the high quality people we have here at Downstate. In terms of our environment here in Brooklyn, it's a challenge. I have lived in 4 different communities during my adult life, Texas, New Orleans, Nashville, Tennessee, and here. And the health challenges here are pretty significant compared even to those communities. So I'm still processing, almost a year in, sort of the challenges of the healthcare landscape here in Brooklyn. The sheer size of Brooklyn, we were talking before, is still something I as I walk around on the weekend, I just say, wow, just so many people here in Brooklyn, and it's so vibrant and it's so diverse. I mean, so that, that also, as a physician, it makes me think, what are the health problems these people have walking around? What's going on in their families and their extended families and their cousins and their coworkers in terms of their health? Are we doing everything we can to make sure that folks in Brooklyn have the best health care that we can muster compared to folks who live in the Bronx or Manhattan or whatever? So when I think about it, it's somewhat an existential question, but sort of saying, what can we do on a daily basis, to really contribute to the betterment of Brooklyn and I would argue New York City and the state as well.
And how do we get more people involved? I'm sure you came here in the same spirit that I did. When I got out of college, I had an offer from the Wall Street Journal, could have gone someplace else, turned it down to come here because I wanted to be part of what was a very exciting time where, in the mid to late 80s, when Spike started making these movies, when it came to politics and culture, every other young person you met had come from halfway across the country. Everybody had a book deal or a script under their arm, a screenplay that they were going to try and hustle.
Right.
They were getting ready for a poetry reading. It was really exciting. There were people who were making plans. I met up with Mark and we started drawing up plans. Let's start a bank. Let's just do this. That level of excitement around health, I think, has got to be one of the pieces of the puzzle. Not just the dedicated professionals, but a broader constituency that can not just participate, but also bring energy, vitality, money, other resources to the struggle.
Right, absolutely. The dynamics that I think we all sort of talk about on a daily basis in terms of healthcare in Brooklyn are challenges. We know we do some things well here at Downstate. There are certain things that we need to do better. The team here has heard me say that, look, our goal is not to be perfect, but it is to be excellent. Perfection is never attainable, but excellence is. And so, I articulate a vision of pursuit of excellence in all our missions, whether it's taking care of patients or administering programs or the way we, take care of the physical space. That, to me, is reflective of how a healthcare organization should be. Because remember, we're in a very simple business, Errol, that we're in the people business. We take care of people at the beginning of their life and at the end of their life and everything in between, and their families, and when they're sick and they're scared, when they're addicted, when they're afflicted. That's our business, and so to the extent that we understand that that's our business, that we train young men and women to take care of people, whether it's from nurse, occupational therapist, PA, physician, biomedical science ultimately takes care of patients through their discoveries. We have to think about it in that context. This is a people business, and it's not a pure science. It's healthcare and medicine is sort of an art based on science. We can't do the art without the science, and you can't do the science without the art of it. And so when you think about it in those ways and then dovetail into sort of the issues here in Brooklyn we were talking about earlier, high levels of obesity, high levels of this, high levels of that, lack of access to this, that makes it all the more important that we really think about our work in that way.
I have over the years seen the rise, the creation of the Brooklyn Perinatal Network, endless numbers of conversations about community health crusades and different ways of trying to make that happen. As the only academic health center in Brooklyn, it seems to me that would be a natural place for a lot of that to happen. How do we make that happen?
Well, true. I think that, we are indeed, it is a fact, we're the only academic health science center in Brooklyn, 2.6 million people. Unfortunately, I don't think some of our policymakers quite grasp how important we are. And so that's why I'm spending a lot of time in Albany. Particularly during this legislative session, I've been in Albany twice in the last 10 days to try to elevate us in terms of the discussion. What is the Assembly going to do with this tight budget period that we're in? Whatever they do, we all know everybody has to tighten their belt and make sure we're using resources appropriately. But I argue that, at a time when we are stressed in the state of New York, this would be the wrong time to turn your back on Central Brooklyn, Downstate, because this is the institution that has to contribute to when things get better. And so to the extent that I can keep going back there to do that, I will. Next week I go to Washington, a visit with the Brooklyn congressional delegation. Again, trying to bring back the message of all these sort of challenges we have, both healthcare in Brooklyn, healthcare in the United States, even global health. We at Downstate have the strength, we have the people, we have the programs, we have the desire, and in fact, we have the passion to address all those realms. And that's what I try to catalyze on a daily basis.
There was the report on the voluntary hospitals in Brooklyn, and in particular, Brookdale, Kingsbrook, Wyckoff Interfaith, as well as Downstate. And the numbers were dire as far as what it costs just to keep the doors open, never mind the sort of the broader transformation that is being envisioned by it. But Downstate's going to be central to all of that if it's going to work, right?
I'm very candid with our folks behind the scenes. I tell the governor's folks that, look, you didn't do us any favors by leaving us out of the Northwell report. But be that as it may, this duck won't fly without Downstate. And I say it just like that. Now, the duck that they're trying to create is this primary care network through the One Brooklyn hospitals, the 4 hospitals, Kingsbrook, Brookdale, Interfaith, and Wyckoff. Remember, the state of New York has been pumping about $300+ million just to keep the doors open at these community hospitals. And the governor is, through, fits and starts, said, look, we got to do better. We got to get some coherency in terms of how these hospitals work. Why do we have this program there and this program there? Why can't we have it jointly or in a collaborative way? So, in government, one of the things you do have is the power of appropriation. And so the governor and the assembly are using this power to sort of jumpstart some changes in how those 4 hospitals work with each other, how it works for Brooklyn. But again, the Achilles heel of this is, in my view, this thing will not fly unless Downstate is a part of it. You can build out as much primary care capacity as you want through the borough. I'm a proud general internist. Primary care is what I learned to do as a young doctor. But if you don't have access to the specialty care, you're not going to be able to take care of Brooklyn appropriately. Mm-hmm. That means all the ologies, as I tell the non-physicians, the cardiology, the gastroenterology, the endocrinology, the rheumatology, et cetera. Specialty care is important to contributing to the health of a community. So that's the way I articulate it. I know many of our faculty were quite upset that Downstate was not more explicitly recognized in the Northwell report, and I was a prospective candidate at that time for the presidency, so I was made aware of it by the search committee. And then once I, was selected, I started to delve in deeper into it, and it was unfortunate. I think it was a tactical error, but it's not fatal, mm-hmm. and that's what I've shared here. It is not a fatal error, it's an error. I wish it hadn't been done, but hey, let's pivot. Let's pivot to how we can help make this duck fly.
One part of that report calls for an extensive network of community health clinics to support the overall mission. From your point of view, is it necessary to sort of build and brand those as, say, downstate type clinics? or are there existing providers who could come in and?
Right, no, I think part of, I think the strategy, as I understand it, is to really leverage the existing providers. Now, remember, Errol, you know, sometimes community caregivers kind of look at big places like us as sort of the them versus us. You know, that's the old town gown thing, right? So to the extent that we understand that community providers will kind of look at us, oh my gosh, Downstate's coming in to take us over. Well, no, Downstate's not coming to take us over, but Downstate's coming in to work with you to make care better. And so that's the way we have to position it, sensitive to the existing community network here, which I think is pretty extensive in some parts of Brooklyn, less so in other parts. But to the extent that we can allay their fears that we're going to be the big bad, you know, state institution that comes in and overly dominates all that happens in healthcare, I think would be a mistake on our part. We would be tone deaf to do that.
I want to ask you about maternal health care in particular, and the report in ProPublica that really sort of laid out some devastating health disparities and didn't really offer a lot in the way of solutions. I mean, that's not necessarily what that report was for. I'm just wondering, how did you process that? What was your reaction upon reading it? Was it new information to you?
It was sort of yes and no. We knew intrinsically that we had some issues with regard to maternal care here at Downstate. The article highlighted some very unfortunate patient experiences, which sort of underscored my mind that we needed to roll up our sleeves and say, okay, look, you know, part of progress is understanding when we can admit to ourselves that we could do better. And so when I got the team together to talk about this, it was like, okay, we have this issue. We've had some very unfortunate maternal deaths that were very painful to understand. So how can we retool ourselves, examine our care, so that we can minimize the chance that these occurrences happen going forward? Maternal mortality is a complicated issue. It's tied in with the genetics of the population. It's tied in with diabetes and obesity, lack of regular source of care. And some women having multiple pregnancies at points in their life where it becomes more statistically dangerous to bear a child. We know that from epidemiologic studies. So there's all of that contributes. Then it's sort of the lack of awareness in some quarters that this is a problem. And so, you know, among our clinical leadership, we talked about it, we processed it, we examined some of those issues, and we've begun a process of really disentangling, unpacking what we're doing so that we can make it better. So my thing with the political story, Earl, is we got to own it. We got to own it. Yes, we had problems. We had some unfortunate deaths, but this is what we're doing to address the problem going forward.
And I mean, what are those things? I mean, is it a matter of changing clinical practices inside the walls or doing different things outside the walls?
Both. Clearly, we have to relook at some of our clinical care sort of processes within our hospital with regard to women who are high-risk pregnancies. So clearly, we have to. You know, as a healthcare professional, we can never get satisfied that just because we've been taking care of a patient one way for 30 years doesn't mean we need to take care of a patient for the next 30 years the same way. Are we using technology to the fullest extent? Are we engaging with the community to say, look, we are concerned about maternal mortality? So the external is to, how can we partner with organizations external to Downstate that are really concerned about maternal mortality? March of Dimes, other African American women's organizations that have really clued into this issue in terms of high African American maternal mortality. You know, the examples in the media are pretty strong. I mean, Serena Williams herself writes about how she almost died after the birth of her baby. Remember, she's had problems with blood clots. Serena Williams is a high-risk pregnancy because she had had blood clots before she was pregnant, when she was winning Wimbledon championships. So here you go, here's someone who is very prominent, obviously very financially successful, professionally successful, and here she is presenting just like some of the mothers we see here in Brooklyn, right? And of course, you know, her situation kind of is extrapolatable to how we have to think about and own up to that we do have challenges with regard to maternal mortality, and that's why we want to better engage with the community to come up with some interventions.
Well, that in fact brings up where perhaps we can work together. And by that I say the media, or the corner of it that I know most about. We're in the business of trying to inform people about stuff that's important to help make their lives better. So are you to a certain extent. What are the messages that we in the media can carry forward around diet, health, lifestyle, and other issues?
Well, you know, one thing that we do know about, you know, the term we use in healthcare settings, Errol, is the social determinants of health. We know that in certain zip codes, you're more likely to live to X age versus a zip code over here where you're only likely to live to this age. And we can track it by zip code even, and neighborhood and census tract. So some of it is we have to make sure that our friends in the media like yourself understand that you know, the demography of health disparities is pretty consistent. That if someone has access to good quality housing, good quality public education, they're less likely to be sick. They're less likely to be addicted. They're less likely to be obese if they live in a community where there's even sidewalks or safe neighborhoods to get out and walk, ride your bike, get out with your family and your kids. So the social determinants of health are critically important, particularly in places like Brooklyn, where we have some challenges. The genetics, we know that the genetics of some of these things are very tough. Diabetes is a strong genetic, disease. I'm the oldest of 5. 3 of my siblings are diabetic, and they're all as thin as me. But it's because we got just strong genetic stuff on both sides of my family of diabetes. Both my grandmothers had diabetes. One of my grandfathers had diabetes. So here it is, and my mother and my father have diabetes. So here it is, 3 of my 4 siblings have diabetes, and not with the typical indicators. So, you know, that's how complicated even something like diabetes is. One of the things we've talked about with Borough President Adams, he's into nutrition. And he's big into promoting meatless. President Adams has had a remarkable transformation. And he talks about it. He was diabetic. He was, 50 pounds overweight. He just, he got religion, as we say, and just started eating better and cut out meat, cut out a lot of stuff, and look at the remarkable transformation President Adams. Now he's evangelistic about it. He wants us to do meatless Mondays in the whole borough of Brooklyn. He's come to see me about that, remember? And so we're working with him on how to try to get the virtues of a plant-based diet, spread through the Brooklyn. A plant-based diet is a very healthy diet. Blood pressure comes down, your cholesterol comes down, your weight comes down, you sleep better. So there is some science behind what he's articulating. So again, that's another piece of the puzzle in terms of nutrition. And then the other, what we say the exercise quotient, getting people to move. It's not to be underestimated that taking a walk on a nice day like this is good for your health. And we got to get our communities to embrace that. So you're right, it's more than just the medical care. It's also to think about it in the context as you and your colleagues report about health is, what are the social determinant of health aspects of this problem?
So if we were to identify, and because you can do this down to the zip code or even the census block level, of telling people you're in a high-risk community or category, or perhaps you may know anecdotally that your family has some risk factors for certain kinds of problems. What I have just often found is, just like with the borough president, there often needs to be a motivating factor, right? I mean, there's all kinds of fad diets. People are hit with so many commercials, I think they start to tune out some of it.
Right.
Or they figure, well, at some point I'll go for liposuction and that'll solve my obesity problem, something like that. How do you introduce, I guess, something to help motivate people? I mean, those smoking ads hit you over the head with what can happen.
Right.
At some point, I think that has some diminishing returns,
Correct,
right?
correct.
But just having a good, healthy lifestyle is something you want to try to do.
More and more scientific evidence comes out that it's not so much the diet you use, it's the diet you live, in terms of making sure that Pat, when I was a real doctor, I used to tell my patients, you got to do sideways push-ups, and they'd look at me like, Dr. Riley, what do you mean sideways push-ups? I said, you got to push away from the table. I mean, yeah. I mean, sideways, but get push away from the table. And simple things like portion control. And particularly in African American community, I still remember my grandmother. We're good at this. Your grandmother says you got to eat everything on your plate. Right? How many times have we heard that? Well, no, that's wrong. You got to tell Big Mama that's wrong. You eat till you're satisfied, and then you stop. You don't overindulge. And so, in terms of how we, deal with our cultural background in terms of eating and our food ways, as we say in anthropology, I'm an anthropology major. So we talk about our food ways. We got to get people to understand that it's not adopting the Atkins diet or this diet or that diet, but it's basically caloric restriction intersecting with activity. Mm-hmm. You get more active, you cut your calories, you lose weight. It's very simple. So like I said, the activity part and the caloric restriction part. Now that doesn't mean you get restricted to 1 cube of food this size, but if you eat more vegetables, more fruit, lean meat, limit your meat to maybe 2 times a week, you're going to lose weight, and you're going to sleep better, you're going to feel better, etc. So that's the kind of counsel I give to folks in terms of how they think about whether they should rush out and buy this diet or that diet. Mm-hmm. Now, even on a commercially available thing, so you said, if you press me and say, all right, Riley, what's the best thing that if somebody's just really passionate about one of these, quote, fad diets? Again, scientific evidence, the best diet out there is Weight Watchers. What is Oprah Winfrey doing now? Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers' concept is portion control and calorie restriction, but they let you eat within certain bounds, and there's a little point system, and I think they've even junked the point system to just go. But if you ask me, hey, I just want to do something out there, Weight Watchers is the best.
It's interesting, coming from New Orleans, I'm sure you've experienced what I've experienced. I married a Southern girl just like my dad did. Mm-hmm. And, food is meant to be enjoyed.
Yes.
And food is not to be wasted.
No, it's not.
And in particular, what I find is that the women make the food, and what I say, and we've had a little friction over this. I said, look, you can't treat me like the family dog.
Yes.
Where, there's some extra stuff here,
yeah,
just eat it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. But it's deep-seated.
It's deep-seated.
Right?
It's cultural. It's our cultural food ways. And again, it's a legacy of coming through very lean times. Days of slavery. To get some food staples was difficult. And so once you got it, you had to eat it, right? Mm. Whether it was slaughtering the pig or, the calf of the cow or whatever. So it is cultural, but it doesn't, you can still be culturally aware of your food ways without sort of taken the bad with it. So you're right. It's a little bit of a cultural sort of tension there that we have to address in terms of obesity.
Yeah, yeah. This is not the last slice of bacon we're ever going to have.
No,
right?
no.
You know, maybe we should get a dog or something
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
right. Or try to have the conversation with your teenagers about turkey bacon.
Yeah, right. Well, is there a way to align better some of the, for lack of a better word, financial drivers of the healthcare system with some of what you're describing? Because I have noticed that with general care physician, you know, you go through your battery of tests, they look at everything, they prescribe you something or they don't, and then they kind of throw you a pamphlet on your way out the door and underline something at the bottom. Oh, by the way, if you exercise more and eat more fruits and vegetables, you'll probably be doing okay. It's done in such a way that makes clear that there's no money or passion or focus behind it. And I think that leaves people with the wrong impression that it's extra if you can get to it.
Right, right. No, I think that's the wrong way to do it. In terms of counseling communities about this, you have to get more specific. So, for example, again, we know this through multiple scientific studies. The standard is 3 to 4 times a week, vigorous cardiovascular exercise to get your heart rate up. Drop your weight, sleep better, all your numbers get better. So does that mean you got to go out and join Blink Gym? No. Do you need to go buy a treadmill? No, because most treadmills end up being in a corner in a closet somewhere. It's amazing how much money treadmill makers, manufacturers have made things that never get used. But it's more to do it on a consistent basis. And again, as we get older, the most important muscle you have in your body, Errol, is this one right here in your chest. It's called your heart. And to the extent that you can keep your heart healthy by getting it to exercise, walking, riding, not just these little lollygag walks. No, but when the weather gets better, get out there and walk, ladies and gentlemen. I tell my patients, I want you to walk till you're sweating, because then I know your heart rate's up there, you're burning calories, you're strengthening your heart, and you're going to feel better, sleep better, drop weight, etc. So cardiovascular, again, more and more data comes out every week that cardiovascular exercise is the best exercise. You don't have to lift weights, you don't have to do all the other sort of things we like to do, but if you get out and get that heart pumping, in the end, it'll be terrific for everybody's health.
On one of these days when the subways weren't working, I had to walk from about 42nd Street down to where New York 1 is, Chelsea Markets, 14th Street. And I was embarrassed at how quick I got there. In the sense that, why am I always waiting for this train or that train? And it's like, you know what, 20 minutes? Right. Just go.
Take the stairs. Go. I mean, I see people do it here. They take the stairs and they get out and walk at the hallway. So no, that makes but we got to get that message broader out into the community. All these people here are health professionals. They work in a healthcare setting. They know this. It's amazing how many people outside of our 4 walls in Brooklyn don't understand that very simple thing.
We have time for a couple of questions.
Yeah, we'll get some questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
We want to thank first Errol Lewis for his presentation. Again, we'd like to take this opportunity to field some questions from you all in the audience. So we have a mic that's available. If you have questions, please just raise your hand and we will come to you.
Now, Errol told
Dr. Gerald Dees.
Yeah. Errol told me before Dr. Dees does, he'll even take political questions too, so it doesn't have to be in healthcare. So if you want to know about Russia or this, or collusion, or Kushner.
I'll talk politics.
Yeah, he'll talk politics too.
It's nice seeing you, Earl.
Good to see you.
Listen to you every day. Give good points on health. I'd like to just bring up something that's obvious, though. As I drive to work, I have to come down Eastern Parkway. Eastern Parkway is divided, not intentionally, but maybe religiously and so forth, but one side you have African Americans, other side is Jewish. The diseases are like night and day because of just diet alone. Because that African American diet is killing us. Jewish people have been following a diet for years, and they're doing well in health. I read the Bible myself and know that shellfish and stuff like that's full of cholesterol and things like this. So how can we improve the diet on that other side when black women ate Argo laundry starch for 90 years, giving them anemia, and nobody did anything about it? Thank you.
Great question.
You know, it is a tough one. I mean, I interviewed a woman who was closing in on 100 once. And whenever I get to interview people who are in advanced age, super seniors, I ask them about their diet and lifestyle, right? Because what I want to hear is...
You want to pick their brain?
Well, yeah. What I want to hear is that they have a shot of brandy every night, and and a cigar on the weekend, and they never miss their bacon, right?
A few ribs every now and then.
Right. And what she told me, which was disheartening but enlightening, was that watching the portion control, watching the calories, that it really never ends. That she still, you have to watch what you eat, you have to watch how much of it you eat. And I'm thinking, man, I would think that after 95, you would just say, whatever it feels like, right? But what I have noticed as I get older is that, yes, you have to spend more of your time thinking about this stuff and taking it seriously, and you don't have to be perfect, but you have to try and be consistent, which is just try and hang on to it. I mean, when I got hired at New York One, I said to myself, I'm not going to be the fattest guy on this channel, which at the time I probably was. And I joined a gym, and I know myself enough from having struggled with it to just take all of the impediments out of the way.
Right.
So I joined the closest gym.
That's
It
right.
wasn't the cheapest, it wasn't even necessarily the best, but it was the closest.
Close.
I rented a locker there, not because it was priced reasonably, because it's not priced reasonably, but I know myself, right? So it's like the clothes are always there.
Right.
I have the laundry service. They'll wash the clothes for
That's
me. And
right.
I have I've taken away all of my
excuse. No
excuses. I will just go there. I really went overboard and got a trainer.
Good.
And the trainer is qualified in diet.
Good.
So we've had long discussions about that. And we've watched, every year, this time of year, as a matter of fact, January, February, influx of new memberships, people who made their New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
And he says, they're going to all clear out by March.
They're gone by Easter.
Yeah.
They're gone by Easter.
Yeah, they'll all be gone, and we can just do our work. It's a struggle. It's a struggle, and the composition of the diet in a neighborhood where, once folk have the ability and the means, because we've built all of these diets on scarcity and dire poverty, frankly, right? So it's just about caloric intake. I mean, I remember having cheese sandwiches as a kid when we lived in the projects in Harlem, or tuna casserole for the fourth night in a row, or pancakes for dinner. I was like, wow, great, pancakes for dinner. All we had was, batter and flour or something, So to sort of not let that be your destiny is really important, and you have to be able to talk to people about it. Like I said, what I found is everybody needs a strong motivation. Like I said, in my case, it was just vanity.
Right.
I was like,
Whatever motivates you.
I get hate mail. You can call me whatever you want. Just please don't call me fat. And for other people, it's, I'm finding for people in the sandwich generation where you're dealing with kids and parents, watching their parents trail off into, amputations and dementia and sudden heart attacks. For me, it was also like I remember distinctly after I turned age 40, a lot of my friends just, one day you just say, did you hear so-and-so had a stroke?
Right.
So-and-so died. And it was like, wow.
Yeah.
And so...
As a way of focusing your attention.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the conversation business. If we can get a big, broad conversation, and not let people, I find, Doctor, not letting people turn it into some kind of a joke or a stereotype. All that vegetarian food is bland. It's like, no, you should talk to those Rastafarians. They'll spark it up for you.
Make
I
it
mean,
pretty good,
hot sauce can work wonders.
That's right. Celery and parsley and all those other good things.
Yeah. Or people say it's just unpleasant. I want to enjoy life. And so, have you seen what the end of a life looks like when it trails off into the whole cast of characters, diabetes, dementia, and so forth?
That's right.
It's very sad.
Got another question there. In the back there first, and then we'll come forward. We'll get both. We'll get you
My name
next.
is Loretta Joseph, and I work in employee health. So I have
Turn it on,
two
Jelani.
observations.
There we go.
I have two observations. One is that I'm a healthy skeptic with a great degree of skepticism, but I'm pleased to say that I feel that Dr. Riley is all in, so I'm happy for that. All in, so that he is all in. And then I'm happy to see Mr. Lewis here as a representative of the press, etc. What I'd like to ask is, we've been saying among ourselves that we have messages that we need to share. How can we get WBLS, maybe even New York One, to give these messages? People listen to these, they watch these programs, they listen to these stations, and they would be best served by listening to some of the messages we have to share about these same diseases that we've been talking about for many years. So how can we, maybe as a result of this very good effort, whoever planned it, kudos to them, can we use this now as a segue to put those messages on WBLS? I mean, a lot of people with the diseases that we talk about listen to these stations. A lot of people watch New York One. Can we use that now? Because we have to help ourselves. There are not a lot of resources available outside as we're looking at today. Can we use those programs, those stations that command a large listenership, viewership, to start talking these messages, Mr. Lewis, that you've been exposed to today, and maybe Dr. Riley could, in his spare time, which is none, coordinate some of these things, because it's much needed and it's long overdue.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, I do what I can do. I mean, one thing we did 2 years ago, maybe we'll go back and do it again, we called it Fitness February. It was some corporate initiative, but one of my colleagues and I, we brought a camera crew into the gym and let them film us working out. And then we had the trainers on, and we talk with the trainers about diet, lifestyle, and everything else. You know, there's ways to try and make it more appealing. It's not the best, most riveting television, but you know, and then there's I think deputizing an army, hopefully, of people who are trusted. And I know you know about all of those different public health initiatives that go through the beauty salons, or the barbershops, or the churches, and so forth. Places where there's already a certain level of trust. And then you do have people like Sharpton's another one, who radically changed his diet.
Yeah, he was very corpulent.
He's half the man he used to be.
He really
you know,
is,
as far as his size.
That's right.
And he'll talk about it in a minute.
Yeah, he will.
He'll talk about it in a minute.
He's like President Adams. He'll tell you about his transformation. Yeah.
I mean, and then, you know, the other thing is that different people learn differently. You know, like I read books. If you want to give me a dense amount of information, put it in a book. I'll read it, I'll learn it, I'll figure it out. That's not for everybody. Some people it's television, some people it's audio, some people need to just hear it in church or some other kind of a source. So we have to be very aware that, and that's why, you know, this is, as a teaching institution, there are a lot of different ways that people learn. There was the other borough president, James Otto from Staten Island. He was on to Talk Politics once. He throws this book on the desk. I thought it was by his brother-in-law or something. He says, everybody should read this book. It's Younger Next Year is the name of it. And it's about the changes in your life and your lifestyle and your body after age 50. And there's one edition for men and there's another edition for women. And it's beautiful. You know, for those who, if you yourself or if people you know will take something from a book, it's an excellent book.
That's a good book.
Because the one for men, they talk to men the way you talk to a 50-year-old man, which is that very much like what you said, but with some firmness to it, which is that you're gonna have to exercise every day for the rest of your life. Suck it up, don't complain. You suck up a lot of other stuff and don't complain about it.
That's right.
Just do it.
Just do it.
You
The
know,
Nike thing, just do it. Yeah.
That's how you talk to a 50-year-old man.
That's right.
You know?
That's the way. Yeah. We got one last here. Yeah.
Yes, question. Brooklyn is home to the second worst health outcomes in the state. So we're here today talking about what's happening in Brooklyn's health care. The question is also, what are we are ignoring about it? So being home to the second worst health outcome, and the fact that of the 35 one-star or 34 one-star hospitals in New York State, 8 of them are here in Brooklyn. What is the strategic strategy that is in place, that is being set up to transform Brooklyn from the second worst health outcomes to the healthiest outcome results in borough history? That, in my mind, should be a central, simple way to communicate what the challenge is before us, and to be able to channel all of our resources towards moving that. So my question to you is, why aren't we there? Why isn't that crystallized? It's already known. Why is that not our mantle?
Great question. You know, in terms of quality, again, there was a time where you wouldn't know the difference between hospitals other than just anecdotally, what people say or what people hear, or based on, you know, one or two experiences. But now we're in an era where you have objective evidence about hospitals. We know, for example, we have a problem here at our hospital in terms of hospital-acquired infections. So what does that mean? Well, that means we have to look at, are we training our folks right in terms of to avoid contaminating each other or getting contaminated from patients? Is there technology solutions that could help? We think we're about to roll out a very nice system called BioVigil, which is a little electronic hand washing monitor that I will be able to look at the doctor and then look at the color of the nurse and say, "Doctor, you didn't wash your hands." And that doctor will look and go wash his hands, or the nurse will go wash their hands, because we know hand washing is still one of the best ways we can decrease infections. It's how we use antibiotics. Remember, many of us came up in an era where we gave out antibiotics like M&Ms. Those days are over, because we know we've overprescribed antibiotics, and as a result, there's a lot of antibiotic resistance in the community. There's community-acquired infections because, again, of how we've used antibiotics and some drugs. So there's lots of things we can do. My team knows I'm not pleased at some of our rankings. We're going to do better. We're going to put resources in to make it better, because I want the community to have confidence in our facility, that we're just as good as any other facility, like I said, across the water. We have work to do. I will admit it's not where we need to be, but part of getting better is acknowledging where you are.
Mm-hmm. I would only add to that. I mean, I spend a lot of time talking with people and reporting on and trying to analyze and leverage change in troubled institutions. So, you know, public housing, our school system, all of these are gigantic systems. The jail system, the Rikers complex, enormously difficult to try and work through. And I share your frustration, because you see, you have the facts in front of you, you talk to everybody you can talk to, and you say, well, if we could change these 5 things, we would start to move the needle. Now, why can't we change those 5 things? And there's always a good reason to not do quite enough on the first point, and the second point, and the third point. And what makes all the difference in the world, it's true for venture capitalism, it's true when they're giving out grants, it's true when you're trying to vote for a politician. The difference is leadership. And you get the right leader who can do away with or get around a lot of those objections, you can sort of make miracles happen. The same 5 strategies tried by a different person can be the difference between success and failure.
Well, let's give Earl Lewis a big round of applause for being with us today and sharing this valuable information. And we also want to thank Dr. Riley for his vision and presenting this type of program to our community. So at this time, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize Rhea Smith, who represents Senator Jesse Hamilton's office. Can we get... Okay, well, we're about to wrap up the program, and I'm going to...
We have something, I think, for Mr. Lewis. Come on up.
Oh, we do? Okay, please.
Oh, swag.
Yeah. we have some nice... something you can wear to the gym.
Okay. Very nice, very nice. What are you saying? Yeah, okay, good, okay, look at that. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Very nice. Thanks very much.
When you're in the cool down phase of your workout.
Good enough. Thank you very
All right,
much.
great,
Really
good.
appreciate it.
Again, another round of applause.
Okay. Yeah,
And of course, before I wrap up, I just wanted to say that President Riley, if I said anything that was disruptive in any way, I am starting a GoFundMe. So you'll be able to find my GoFundMe in a couple of hours. Okay. But we thank you very much again for this program. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the following people or organizations that helped put this program together. The SUNY Downstate Black History Committee, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, the Dean's Office, College of Health-Related Professions, the Office of Community and Government Relations, the Office of Diversity, Education and Research, the Office of Communications and Marketing, and the Medical Research Library for helping us put this program together. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you, and we have refreshments for everyone out there, so please, you're welcome, and thank you for coming.